Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Ren Taler. I mainly make videos about books, writing, but now I've been experimenting with commentary videos, mainly pertaining to books and the community surrounding that. If you're not a part of it already, I don't know how these videos end up on other people's recommended, but if you are one of those people, thank you for sticking around. I appreciate it. Without further ado, let's just get into what this video is about. And this video is about an author who basically ended their professional career as a writer for a multitude of reasons that we'll get into in this video. But the main thing that tanked this author's career was them negatively review bombing a bunch of authors of color when this author is in fact a white person. And then has proceeded to allegedly, using that protective language, they have allegedly used their mental health as an excuse to do what they did. The reason why I'm making this video is because no one in my personal life knows about this or cares, I think. But I feel like there are plenty of discussions to be had about this whole situation, and they're worth having, in my opinion. So here I am talking to you guys about it. Hopefully you stick around. Actually, before we do get into anything else, make sure to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I hope to be making more commentary videos in the future about various pop culture things. That's also something I'm aiming for. But to get back to the topic at hand, there is this other author who is a major player in this whole story, and that is Shirin J. Zhao. I know I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. I am so sorry. I promise. I did my research. I looked up how to say it, but when I overthink things like how to pronounce people's names, I always mess it up. So I'm sorry in advance if I do continue to pronounce their name wrong. So yes, at the very base of this story, there was a white author who was supposed to debut in 2024 with their book, A Crown of Starlight, and they had been caught negatively review bombing other authors who were mainly POC. Dating all the way back to April 2023, according to Shirin, who at the beginning of December of last year had begun posting about this entire situation. Now they have posted a compilation of all their TikTok videos regarding this entire instance. I will leave that compilation down below in the description, the link to it, and other videos relating to this subject that explain it more in depth and give a very good sort of prequel to what we're kind of dealing with now, which is an article that has come out fairly recently of this author defending themselves after everything that happened. But yes, those reviews, how are they made? Well, accounts by this author were seen, multiple accounts, by the way, on this platform called Goodreads, were seen rating multiple books in order to make themselves seem more legit. What gave them away was that they kept putting the same book on different lists. So this person made multiple accounts on Goodreads in order to make it seem like multiple people were rating all these other books badly. And if you don't know what Goodreads is, it's just an app or website that readers can go to find their next favorite read. There's a joke going around that Goodreads has only one employee because there are just a lot of things that we won't get into in this video that Goodreads does. The app itself is just poorly designed, in my opinion. And every time I go in there, I'm like, wow, it looks the exact same as always. And no one has bothered to fix that. But I digress. Goodreads, unlike other social media platforms where, you can do anything, like post about anything, Goodreads is literally just meant for rating books, reviewing them, and then talking to other people via that sort of avenue, if you will. So the tweet that this author posted reads, "Nasty surprise of the day was learning that there were fake accounts messing with my Goodreads ratings recently. If you've actually read my book and want to rate and review it, that would be great. As reader interest pre-release tells my publisher that my book is worth investing in. I guess this explains why my rating was fluctuating so much. If you like my book, please rate and review it. If you hated it, you're also entitled to share your opinion, but making fake accounts to manipulate my book's rating is something else entirely. I'm gonna go be sad now." Yep. On December 5th, Shirin tweeted about the situation without naming who the author was in order to give that person a chance to come clean and prove who it could have been otherwise, with receipts, obviously, if they were going to do that. A friend of Kate's, or an associate as Jiren calls them, shared the screenshots with Jiren of a conversation Kate had had with a fellow Reylo fan, discovering that it was them who made the accounts, not Kate. Okay, cool. And if you don't know, the Reylo fandom are a group of people who ship Rey and Kylo Ren from the Star Wars franchise. Lots of different people have written books on this. Some books you may not have even realized that would have been Reylo fanfic at one point, but the best example is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood and, well, A Crown of Starlight. And there are other books. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I can't. But long story short, though, this conversation was fake. And you can tell because of the timestamps being out of chronological order. And when Jiren asked for more conversations between Kate and Lily, no further evidence would be provided. And just so we can go down memory lane, let's take a look at the conversation that Kate had apparently had with this Lily person. It goes as follows. So if yesterday's nonsense wasn't enough, today I got an email that said there were a number of ratings and reviews left on my book by illegitimate accounts, which I guess explains why my rating was fluctuating wildly up and down over the last week. Also, my car is in the shop and they don't know why the battery doesn't work, but they'll get back to me when we know anything. So I'm not really holding out hope. This week continues to spiral and I go with it. Lily responds, "What do you mean?" Kate says, "About what part? A lot of things have happened." Lily goes, "The ratings. I mean, that people were making fake accounts to rate my book, or books in general, I guess. So someone was rating your book low? No, the email was effing weird, like multiple question marks. And then it's hard to see exactly what that email said, but it's from the Goodreads support email, and it reads, "We determined that several accounts that gave your book positive reviews were illegitimate, and we have removed them from Goodreads. It is a violation of our review and author guidelines to artificially inflate a book's ratings. Please refrain from engaging in activity of this nature in the future to avoid being banned from Goodreads." And that is, just as an aside, a practice that authors have been known to possibly engage in the past, where they will either make fake Goodreads accounts to boost the rating of their own book, like certain people, or they will get friends of theirs or pay other people to do that for them, to rate their books positively with those people's accounts that they've paid. And the conversation continues. "It seems like the reviews were positive, but I didn't do anything." Lily goes, "Rating books high is against the rules?" Kate goes, "No, but making fake accounts to rate them high is artificially inflating a book's reviews. That's against the rules." Then we have this emoji. "Oh, I didn't realize you could get in trouble." Kate goes, "What?" Lily goes, "Please don't get mad. I made a couple accounts. I think that was me." "What? Why?" "The other night, when you were worrying about your book would get overshown by bigger books at your publisher, I wanted to help. So I made a couple accounts to rate your book high. I'm sorry, I really didn't think it would be a problem." "What the F? Why? I don't need fake reviews to help me. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I really didn't think it would hurt. I was just trying to be nice." Oh my God, I don't even know what to say. I don't need you to step in and try to be nice with this. Do you have any idea how patronizing that is? How humiliating? How much damage you could have done? I'm going to be sick. Literally going to vomit. Someone just posted this screenshot in my writing group. And then it's the tweet that Jiren had made about this whole situation. It was a subtweet, and I believe this is the tweet that they made where they didn't name Kate right off the bat. Over time, it would become very obvious that it was this person, because people on book Twitter are scary and are able to figure things out very fast. I respect you guys from a distance. I do not touch book Twitter. That tweet says, "If you as a debut author are going to make a bunch of fake Goodreads accounts, one-star bombing fellow debuts you're threatened by, can you at least make it not so obvious by upvoting your own book on a bajillion different," I think it says lists, but it gets cut off in the screenshots that were provided. But Jiren goes on to say, "I'm not going to leak the extensive receipts so I don't ruin this person's career before it even starts, but if you do anything further in a similar vein, action will be taken." And of course it was, clearly. And then Kate continues on by saying, "Please, for the love of God, tell me you weren't actually stupid enough to use grammar, the same accounts that you made to boost me to bomb other people." Well, I didn't think anyone would notice I didn't think anyone would noise every time I read that quote. I just like, anyway. Oh, okay, we're good. Noise. That is just something me and my fiance say to each other all the time. So anytime I've looked at this screenshot and seen that, I just immediately burst out laughing. And now I just can't get that word out of my head. Anyway, I'm so sorry to the people listening with headphones when I yell into the mic like that. I swear I'm trying my best here. Kate goes, I'm literally going to be sick. I need to email my agent. This could literally cost me my effing career. I don't even know what to say. This is such a violation of my trust and out of friendship. Lily goes, I'm so sorry, Kate. I'm really sorry. I didn't think it would hurt. Kate, you know, jumble of letters. How could it not hurt? Who the F did you go after? I really didn't mean to hurt you. I was trying to help. God, I can't even keep talking to you. What the F? I'm so sorry. I don't care. This was such a shitty thing to do. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Anyone else you targeted just for shits and giggles? Any other people you wanted to destroy in my name? There were a couple other books that I left some reviews on to try and make it look less obvious. Names. Who? I don't know. Just some other people on the debut list that I saw getting a lot of buzz. I just wanted to help. Kate, this is psychopathic behavior. I'm sorry. I was only trying to help. You keep saying that. I think we're done here. And I mean, this kind of goes on for a little while, but eventually we kind of come to a conclusion where Lily starts to take a very villainistic, if that's even a word, turn in her demeanor. And she basically ends up saying that she's not sorry, that she was just trying to help. You know, she messed up, but she was just trying to be a good friend. And that, you know, it shouldn't be a big deal. She supposedly had said, if your career is so fragile that something like this could break it, then maybe I should keep going. Which, even if this was a real conversation between two different people, this is not the kind of thing people could recover from regardless of who they were. Unless you are someone with astronomical amounts of fame, it is just honestly insane to me. This all happened on Discord, by the way, this specific conversation, I believe. Discord's such a weird place. Anyway, then there was a Slack group for 2024 debut authors. Kate confessed to being the author that Xiran had talked about in their tweets, but by this point, they were still trying to say that it was somebody else. And they were still trying to put the blame on another person. Despite it having been 6 hours since Xiran had asked, Kate could still not provide any receipts that was somebody else. Just to backtrack a little bit, Xiran had subtweeted about the situation and people were trying to figure out who it was. Eventually, they caught on to the fact that it was probably Kate, and then Kate admitted to being that author, but was still denying that it was them. And then we're going to go on a little bit of a side quest. We're going to talk about one of the authors that Kate had downvoted, and her name is Bethany Baptiste. Another thing I want to mention also is that all the books that were affected by this downvoting are going to be named in the description down below if you want to go support the authors who were affected by this. But anyway, Bethany Baptiste is a Black author who is debuting in 2024. She made a tweet regarding this whole situation. It reads, "Strangers want to know so y'all don't support that author while simultaneously not supporting the debuts affected anyway. That's why nobody's saying anything RN. This is hot tea for y'all. Meanwhile, debuts have to deal with an albino snake in the hen house. Let us process this." Which another author who was a friend of Kate's at the time saw that and thought that the tweet was about them. And the response to Bethany's tweet says, "It's really disappointing that other authors immediately stooped to making fun of my albinism in call-out posts. Having albinism is a disability. It's the reason I'm blind. You can dislike me if you want to, but you aren't helping anyone when you make jokes about me being albino." That phrase, albino snake in the hen house, is a Southern saying, I believe it's referring to when a white person does something to affect a certain group of people, mainly Black people. I did want to add that Meredith has since apologized for thinking that Bethany's tweet was directed towards her and for not understanding Southern vernacular, and has since shown support for the authors that were affected by Kate's actions. I don't know too much about that aspect of this side quest, if you will. It's not even a side quest. It is actually a very major part of this story. This is just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. Not a lot of people understand just how much people's careers were affected by this. Obviously, this other author having albinism doesn't really have anything to do with this part of the story, other than that someone thought that they were making fun of her for having this condition. But no, they were just talking about this other author, Kate. Now, let's get back to the main part of this story, which concerns mostly Jiren and the content that they've posted concerning this whole situation. All of this was enough for Jiren to finally drop the Google Doc with all of the receipts in it. Then members of the Raylo fandom started cross-referencing their old group chats, and no one could find any record of who Lily was, therefore kind of confirming that Lily was not a real person. To make matters worse, Kate ended up review bombing her own friend, Thea Guanzon. I know I'm also not saying that correctly. Guanzon? It's Thea. It's not Thea. It's Thea. One of the people that Kate Corain review bombed was her own longtime author friend. And Thea is actually an author of The Hurricane Wars. So this is actually a copy that I have of The Hurricane Wars by Thea. I started it not too long ago, and I have been enjoying it so far, I will say. So if the idea of kind of not cyberpunk, I'd say steampunk, but still very magical type of fantasy, if that sounds interesting to you, then I would definitely pick this up. Don't focus on this. Just look at that book. Kate actually ended up giving Thea's book 2 stars with all of her fake accounts. Thea had left such a glowing review. If I can find a screenshot of it, I'll put it up on the screen now. She left such a glowing review of Kate's book, and it was so kind, it was so nice and glowing, as Jiren pointed out, that it's hard to really fathom just how sinister this all kind of felt. And just to mention all the other books that were affected by this, that includes Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, So Let Them Burn by Kamilah Cole, The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste, To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X Chang, Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright, The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon, The Empire Wars by Akana Phenix, Knives, Seasoning, and a Dash of Love by Katrina Kwan, and the Gods of Hunger series by R.M. Virtues. Keep in mind, R.M. Virtues is an indie author. They do not have the same backing as a traditionally published author such as Kate had, and they still felt the need to go after Virtues, which is just something I personally don't understand. And that one really got to me for some reason. I think because I am someone who is also aspiring to be an indie author one day, that I can't imagine ever going through something like this. It's one thing if people negatively review your book because they genuinely didn't like it, but for this reason specifically, it just feels gross and infuriating, if I'm being honest. And that is my opinion. Also, Crown of Starlight was going to be the main book for Lumicrate, which I have a subscription to. I could have been an owner of this beautiful book, and instead they had to go and do this. Obviously, that is the main concern, is that I won't get to own the special edition of A Crown of Starlight. But eventually, Kate posted an apology, which goes as follows. Dear friends, family, readers, fellow authors, and members of the publishing community. Since June of 2022, I've been fighting a losing battle against depression, alcoholism, and substance abuse, the full scope of which I've hidden from everyone in my life out of shame and a misguided belief that with the right medicine or enough therapy, I could beat it. In late November 2023, I started a new medication, and on December 2nd, 2023, I suffered a complete psychological breakdown. And as Jiren pointed out, the Goodreads accounts go all the way back to April. So yes, the psychological breakdown could have happened and probably did, if we are to believe Kate, but that doesn't explain the fact that these accounts were made long before this ever happened. During this time, I created roughly 6 profiles on Goodreads, and along with 2 profiles I made during a similar but shorter breakdown in 2022, I boosted the rating of my book, bombed the ratings of several fellow debut authors, and left reviews that range from kind of mean to downright abusive. Two of those authors, Molly X Chang and Danielle Jensen, are fellow Del Rey authors. I'm going to put up on the screen too a comment that with one of their fake accounts, Kate had left on Molly X Chang's book. Keep in mind, Molly is an author who is being published by the same company that was supposed to publish A Crown of Starlight. Man, this comment reads, I can't believe Del Rey spent $500,000 on this when they could have spent $500,000 on anything else. Sorry, not sorry. And I mean, this is just a personal question of mine. How would you know what this person's, like how much they were spending on this book? I don't know if they were referring to Molly's advance or just like how much in general that the publisher Del Rey was willing to spend on Molly's book. But either way, how would you know unless you were like talking to Molly herself or getting info from the company or something along those lines? Like, that's not something a regular person like myself would know, right? None of us are going to know, okay, this person made this much with their advance or this much was spent on their book without them revealing that information. Or if we were a part of that industry ourselves, I don't know. Kamilah Cole and Bethany Baptiste just happened to be on the wrong Goodreads list at the wrong time. Keep in mind that in one part of the conversation between Lily and Kate, Lily had said, I just remembered something important. A lot of my bad reviews were for POC authors. When the call out post eventually comes for you, they'll call you a racist too. You're welcome, bitch. So at this point, knowing that conversation between Lily and Kate was fake, you start to realize Kate was acknowledging at that point they were being racist and that it wasn't by chance that these other authors happened to be on those lists. It also is worth noting that this part of the conversation was only sent to Jiren, not the group chat that Kate had also sent these screenshots to. So Kate had just conveniently left this part out, according to Jiren. I felt no ill will towards any of them. It was just my fear about how my book would be received running out of my control. My memories of this are extremely fuzzy, so it's possible there are a couple of other authors. If so, please know I take full ownership of what I did to you as well. I'm sorrier than you'll ever know. There's nothing I can say to erase what I did to you. When I was slapped on the wrist by Goodreads and vague tweeted by a handful of people, I panicked that my secret was about to get out, and rather than taking responsibility for my actions, I tried to cover my tracks. Still in the middle of this breakdown, I made up the world's sloppiest chat with a non-existent friend who's supposedly to blame, and sent fake apologies of the actions of said friend, which only made things worse. I betrayed the confidence of my agent, my pub team, my readers, and my friends, and betrayed my own deeply held values. I also dragged one of my dearest friends and fellow debut authors into the mud with me when she came to my defense. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the author who tweeted back at Bethany Baptiste when she originally thought that Bethany was talking about her when saying albino snake in the henhouse. I'll leave her name out of this so as to not pull her in even deeper. However, if she wishes to come forward, I will apologize to her publicly as well. Let me be extremely clear. While I might not have been sober or of sound mind during this time, I accept responsibility for the pain and suffering I caused, and my delay in posting this is due to spending the last few days offline while going through withdrawal as I sobered up enough to be brutally honest with you and myself. I know some of you won't forgive me, and I recognize that. You're not required to. No one ever wants to be judged by their worst actions, but that's not always up to us. I'll be reaching out to everyone directly impacted, though that may take time since I'm checking into an intensive psychiatric care and rehab facility, which means I'll mostly be off social media as I need to give 100% to the program if I want it to stick. All I can do going forwards is to try to live my life in a way that shows you these aren't empty words. Yours with so much love and the utmost heartbreak, Kate Corain. And now, this all happened back in December, right? Now we are at the Daily Beast article that was posted fairly recently. I want to say at the beginning of February, so that's pretty recent. So in this article, Kate seemingly, allegedly, tries to blame what she did what they did, on their new ADHD meds, mood stabilizers, plus I guess at some point they were doing ketamine via IV, and that somehow led to a psychotic break. The issue has to do with the fact that Kate is constantly saying that they're not using mental health as an excuse. But articles like this are kind of giving that impression, right? I say articles like this as if there's more than one. I don't believe that there are more articles that Kate has given an interview for. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. But as far as I'm concerned at this point, this is the only one. And I feel like it's important to highlight that racism and mental health aren't like one doesn't cause the other, you know? Like mental health doesn't just make you racist. Those thoughts have to kind of already be in your head. And if you are someone with prejudice or biases against a certain group of people, subconscious or otherwise, because we have all probably committed some sort of microaggressions against another group of people because they are different from what we know. You can sit there and say you're not racist, but based on past actions, those can be considered racist by that group of people. And if a number of them are saying, hey, what you did was racist, that probably means you was being racist, okay? And that is more likely to come to the forefront when you have mental health problems. I am someone who is decidedly not racist for a multitude of reasons. Hello. Obviously, being a part of one or a few minority groups doesn't exempt you from having those thoughts and biases. But just based off of personal experience, you know, having been on the receiving end of racism, but also having started new meds, I know what it's like to be in that place where you just, not that you want to be mean to other people, but you just kind of forget all sense of decorum and any means of respect for others. To put it quite frankly, it is very difficult to maintain that level of sanity when your brain feels like it's exploding constantly. But like I said, those thoughts have to already be in your head that, oh, these people are already suffering enough. And I don't even know if that's the right word to use, but these people are already at a disadvantage, we'll say, regarding their skin color or their sexuality or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to do something to make that even worse for them and to make their lives harder. And somehow that will probably make my life easier, right? And then the author, Akana Phenix, had to contact Goodreads at one point to take her book down because it had been review bombed so bad, she had to start over from scratch. That's crazy. That also, you can't just delete the unhonest reviews. Goodreads should have a feature where you can't rate a book unless you've read it because it's owned by Amazon, and Amazon has a thing where at least some products can only be reviewed when you are a verified purchaser. Goodness. So now we are going to move on to the Daily Beast article. I know I've already started talking about it, but now we're going to go through it and actually talk about it. So I'm not going to go and read through the entire article, but I'm also not going to link it down below because I don't want to give this article any more clicks. Besides, you have to make an account if you want to view it. It is free for a few articles, but I personally don't think this one is worth it, but that's my opinion. One of the lines that really caught my eye with this article was in the second paragraph, it says, it was a sheer awful coincidence that the majority of those books were by writers of color. Let's just play devil's advocate for like 1 second and say, okay, even if that were the case, the fact that it happened to be more than one, but let's say more than two authors who happen to be people of color, the fact that it was still hurting people, even if it was all white authors, that still wouldn't make the situation any better. You still unintentionally or otherwise ended up setting these authors back, in my opinion, especially with the likes of Akana Phenix, who allegedly had to start over on Goodreads because of all of this. Even if it was a coincidence, that doesn't change the outcome of the actions. And then Kate goes on to say, I want to be extraordinarily clear that race had absolutely nothing to do with the authors that I chose to go after. The fact that there were a large number of people of color amongst the authors that I targeted is an unfortunate coincidence that happened because I was going off of Goodreads lists. This was the only driver, and I'm so distressed and heartbroken by the fact that the impression that people have of me now is that I am a racist. It just keeps on going, honestly. Authors of color were especially impacted by the reviews, with some saying they had to create new Goodreads accounts because their book rankings had been demolished. They said the negative reviews set them back in a corner of an industry that was already slow and not the most receptive to fantasy stories about people of color and Black people specifically. Following the incident, Kareen's agent, publisher, and book distributor all dropped her as a client. She told the Daily Beast that her publisher didn't contact her before making a public statement and learned she had been fired after reading a news headline. And I mean, that is rough, but there is not enough respect given in order for it to be returned. And I think regardless of what someone did, you kind of have to tell them, I think you should at least tell them face to face and have them not find out over the internet. But again, not enough respect was given for it to be earned in that situation, in my opinion. I understand how difficult the publishing industry is to navigate when you are marginalized. This part of the article really got me, where it is pointed out that Kate Kareen is a Jewish neurodivergent person. She seemingly understood and empathized with how much of a professional setback the negative reviews would cost Black authors. Hi, I am also a Jewish neurodivergent person of color, and I have never once felt the need to do this to another person. Again, personal thing. I have never, moreover, used that as an excuse to put someone down, at least to my knowledge, because I don't make a habit of doing this specifically, but I was saying earlier how we all have probably committed microaggressions of some kind. I'm sure at some point from, middle school onwards, I've maybe made comments here or there that looking back may not have been the nicest, but taking such actions, going to such great lengths to put other people down this way is not it. And trying to align yourself with the victims of all of this is the part that is really getting to me. Like saying, oh, I'm a neurodivergent Jewish person. That literally has nothing to do with the conversation at hand. What are you talking about? Honestly. Another quote, as a neurodivergent person, she said the publisher's editing notes put her in a state of panic along with increasing feelings of self-doubt due to all the visual noise. I am someone who has received editing notes from an editor before, and those notes can be scary. And I have certainly been in situations where I've received notes on my work, and these notes led me to feel depressed in some way. I couldn't imagine reacting this way, but it is worth noting that everyone reacts to criticism differently, clearly, and someone had this extreme of a reaction, in my opinion. That was Kate's way, I guess, of dealing with this. And then on top of self-medicating and her daily dose of ADHD medication and mood stabilizers, Kareen began doing IV ketamine treatments for depression. Wow, that is a lot. It is worth noting that Kate was also diagnosed with autism relatively recently, according to this article. But again, I know plenty of autistic people and people with ADHD. You can say that that's an excuse to do something bad, but that's not a good one, just saying. Also, I feel like this comment about feeling inferior to other peers who did not have accessibility issues. You don't always know what other people are dealing with. If you yourself were diagnosed with autism recently, then who's to say that anyone else couldn't receive another life-altering diagnosis? Doesn't have to necessarily be autism or ADHD, though these days that is fairly common to receive a diagnosis of very late in life, say like early 20s and onwards. In June of 2023, Kareen tried a new ADHD medication and said that was when she created her first Goodreads account and wrote negative reviews against her will. And I wrote in my notes, does ADHD meds or do ADHD meds make you do things against your will? As someone who has been on them and knowing how bad the side effects can get, I can I know that they can make you feel awful. Like, it's really hard to explain. If you haven't been through it, you won't ever truly know or understand what it feels like, especially when you're in between doses. So, with ADHD medication, it's not like antidepressants where you have to build up over time. It's a daily thing where you can take it technically at any time of the day, at least with the medication that I've been on previously. But in between when it wears off one day and when you take it again the next day, that period in between can be very difficult to deal with, and very unpleasant emotions can come from that. But even if that's the reason why you did something bad, it's still you that did it. And unfortunately, you have to accept the consequences otherwise, which I guess technically Kate is doing, but it doesn't really come across that way, if I'm being honest. And then there's this quote that says, I woke up the next morning, I had this awful, dread in my stomach, and I couldn't tell anyone because I was absolutely convinced that if I told anyone about what had happened and the fact that I had done something that was so incredibly out of character for me, that I was going to be institutionalized. I can say from personal experience that if you do struggle with these sort of what I can assume was intrusive thoughts, I don't know for sure. Obviously, I'm not talking to this person, but this is what I'm inferring at this point. So keep that in mind. But having thoughts like this where you think the world is going to end, maybe not literally, but more figuratively, like your world is going to come crashing down around you, that can make you feel and do some crazy things. Like, I have, again, not done this, but I have been in situations where I'm talking to, say, my fiance, and I say or do something that wasn't very nice. And it isn't until I maybe take my medication again the next day, or I got some rest, or, I had time to think about what I had said or done, that I realize, oh my God, that was awful. I'm so sorry. And accepting the consequences of your actions, especially after said actions happened because of the medication or whatever adjacent issues, it's a real blow to the ego to have to admit that you didn't really have control over your reactions, or to say that to some degree you weren't powerful enough to overcome these thoughts and to just move on. I can understand that, at least. So if you have a thought like this where you think you have done something bad, and you think, like in Kate's case, that you might get institutionalized, the ADHD meds will go, hey, let's think about this for the next few hours. And that feeling of almost being forced to have to think about something that is making you uncomfortable for hours on end, because that's the thing with ADHD medication, is it's supposed to help with your focus, but it doesn't necessarily allow you to choose what to focus on. So if you're going through something traumatizing or horrible, like what Kate was going through, it can take you down some pretty bad and possibly dark paths, right? I am in no way defending Kate, but to understand where they might have been coming from, I think really adds to the conversation in the way that I feel some people haven't. I just want to make sure that, at least on my end, that I'm not just screaming at this person and telling them you are a horrible person, you did a bad thing, because they did do a bad thing. But I also do think that Kate has had a pretty rough time. And I think if this were me and I was in their situation, I would just do what I could to get better and to step away from social media, probably forever, because there's no way, unless they go under a pen name, probably as an indie published author, there's no way otherwise that they would really be able to recover from this. Because at least for the next few years, anytime they try to come back, well, this will happen. And it says further on in the article that she was prescribed a medical cocktail of Zoloft, Buspar, Vyvanse, which is the ADHD medication, Lamictal, ketamine, and trazodone, which I believe ketamine is a sedative, and then trazodone sounds like it is a pain medication, but it's also possible that it's another psychological drug. Oh, and then there's this one part that was it was so random. I believe that all of this with Kate had happened around the time Matthew Perry had died. And so in this article, they just mention that it was the same day the actor Matthew Perry's autopsy report was released. And that just happened to be the day that she checked into an inpatient psychiatric facility to regain a sense of control. Why did this need to be brought up? What the hell does Matthew Perry have to do with any of this? Literally nothing. Why did we have to talk about it? Although, if you look at the article, his name is highlighted, which leads me to believe that if you click on his name, it'll lead you to an article probably about him. So I don't know. I guess they figured maybe that they'll get a lot of clicks on this article and then more people will be curious about the article they wrote about Matthew Perry. I do not know. That is alleged. But an hour later, that is everything I have to say on the subject. Dear God, that took way too fucking long, but I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe. This video will take forever to get together, but nonetheless, I am glad that I finally sat down and made it because I just wanted to talk about it. Like, no one I know cares about this. I kind of envy them, to be honest with you. I hope you got something out of this. I don't know if enjoyed is the right word to say here, but I hope that you feel like you didn't waste your time. There you go. So like and subscribe. And hopefully there'll be a video soon after this one. I don't know when, but I'm trying. I'm just going to end this video now. Bye. Also, social media will be down below. Bye.